Do you love to collect beautiful fabrics? Are you simply unable to resist when they call your name? And now, slow stitching is calling you too, right? But it's easy actually to feel a little bit overwhelmed when you come to start slow stitching. And this can put you off actually starting at all, can't it? You're not alone. I have a better way to start, and as someone who loves to use my stash to slow stitch, I find it much easier to follow a few simple rules. These help me to get started, to enjoy the process, and to finish my slow stitching projects. So, let's be productive together, shall we? When people talk about slow stitching, they very often talk about different things. Embroidery or putting things together in a more, sort of haphazard fashion, snippet rolls, hangings, lots and lots of different things. So I was just going to show you a couple of things that I consider to be slow stitching. Now this is something that I did quite a while ago. As you can see, it's just, well, it started off as a small kind of book, but it's grown a little bit, and that's fine because I used something that I loved in the beginning as my base, and every single piece that I've put on here I love. There's honestly not one piece here that I don't like. So I use this one for storage, okay, and also just for, for looking through, for inspiration, loads of different things really. So I have photos, I have envelopes, I have buttons, we have lace, even these little catches here, I just love them, look, absolutely adore them. The buttons, most things in here are one-offs. They're not things that I'm, thinking I'm going to come across again. These were crocheted by my mum. These little buttons here, again, these, I just adore the colours of these. Absolutely love them. So why not keep them? Nice little scissors, look. What are these? More buttons again. I mean, I love these things. This is the one I call my knicker journal really, because this doesn't look like it's come off a pair of knickers, doesn't it? But I promise you it hasn't. It's just a triangle that I didn't know what to use for anything else, but I wanted to keep it. Have a look at it. It's beautiful, isn't it? I have so many bits and pieces in here, other things that I've made. I also have room obviously for other bits to go in, so all those things in there. I love it. I would say these were slow stitching because I stitched them slowly obviously, but over time, and I love every piece in there. This one, obviously a lot different. It was just made as a pouch, and it's only over the last few weeks or so that I've actually started putting pins in it. I don't know that things are going to stay on there, but that's fine. The purpose of this is just for me to store things at the minute. Okay, a diary, a bit more practical. I made this cover a little while ago. I made a video about it, so that'll be in the playlist somewhere. Have a look, but these bits on here, I love all these fabrics. I loved making it. I did it all by hand. That's slow stitch, right? And this one again, slightly different. So this is one where I wanted to store, well, I wanted to use all these lovely different bits, but I also wanted to store some photographs and things like that. So we made this one by hand. Again, I slow stitched it. Favourite fabric. I think there was some, there's my little French bit. Postcards. So these, they're different purposes, but they're all slow stitched as far as I'm concerned. So I tend to start my slow stitching in a way that's different to a lot of people sometimes. I start at the end. The other reason for knowing what I'm going to do with it first is that I can use different bits and pieces on it. I mean, this is just one of my little jars there, obviously. I have a case here of lovelies, and I have lots of jars of buttons. But again, aren't they beautiful? Absolutely stunning. But there's no point in me using this on something that I, perhaps like if I'm going to make a coaster or something like that, then it can't really have all these buttons on the top, can it? Likewise, if I'm going to make something like this pincushion or this one here, I can put, so on that one, because I knew I was going to put lots of bits on the top, I can use beads, I can use other little embellishments. It's not like a coaster that needs to be flat, is it? So what I'm going to suggest, if you don't know what to do, make it easy on yourself, okay? So I'm going to make this little case that I've started and haven't completely finished, as you can see. That is going to be useful, isn't it? I can put buttons and things on the front, obviously, because it's not going to be, you know, in a bookshelf or anything like that. I want things to be on, you know, sort of a little bit sturdy, because I will be using this, perhaps putting it in my bag, certainly pulling it in and out of drawers. So all that's fine. That gives me a good idea of what sort of things of these. You know, I can use all of these, can't I? And I can use all of these. I can use all of these. I need that idea in the beginning of what I'm going to do. So this one, the very, very easiest way for me to make something like this is with this. Okay, the humble, very, very humble little hanky. I mean, it could be a doily of, you know, anything really, as long as it's square. I would say start with something square or rectangular to begin with, just because it's easier. You can see this one has spots on it, doesn't it? It has marks there. That's okay, we're going to cover all that up. When you're buying them, see if you can get one which is, you know, none of them are particularly true, I would say, because a lot of them are handmade and they've been through the washing machine, you know, a lot of times, haven't they? But you see on this one, look, if I can fold it one way, then these aren't exactly matching. So I'm going to just try and refold that one. And then you can see there that it does actually all come together quite nicely. And then into that one, we want to put something to make it thicker, don't we? On this one, look, it's it has this blanket in the middle, so it's still nice and workable. You know, when you're actually stitching onto it, you want that bit to be, you want it to feel nice, don't you? So that's fine for that. If I didn't have that, I would use just a piece of old towel or another piece of blanket. Look, any of these things will do. So we just pop that in the middle. So we have that one all encased in there, so that's quite nice. Feels nice as a, feels nice to hold there, so that's lovely. I can already see that I've forgotten something, haven't I, which is to put this in. So what I did on this first one is I laid that one down on there before I stitched it closed, but never mind. If we have another piece like this, we're going to cover the front piece completely, aren't we? This is completely covered. So we can put this down now. We want, yeah, okay, I want it about that long. In which case I might as well use the whole thing, to be fair, mightn't I? So pop that one, let's get this centre mark. Put that one in there on the cover. So a really quick stitch to attach that one. I think I will actually just pin these two pieces down, just so that they don't move too much, that's all. And check by doing that. Yep, they're fine. Okay, so let's start having fun. Let's start pulling bits out. I tend to store all my bits and bobs in big jars like this, and then just pull them out as and when I need them. So that's the second thing really. My first thing that I did, as I say, was start at the end. I decided what I was going to do with it. The second thing was to actually make up a base. Now there are loads of reasons for making this base. Yes, it means that by the time you get to the end, you're not then thinking, okay, what am I going to do with it? But it's not just that. Do you remember when you were making, putting together jigsaws and things like that? I always used to get the corners first, do the edges, and then fill in the middle. Gives you a good grounding, doesn't it, to be able to get the border right first. And that's what I'm doing on this. I'm getting the border together first, and then I'm filling it in. It's so much easier to do that than it is just to start with, you know, a piece of fabric. I mean, I could have started with this, couldn't I? Been stitching along fine. But it's just easier to get the outside done first, get the parameters done, and then fill it in. So that's what we're going to do here. That is a gorgeous piece, isn't it? Really lovely. What else do I have on there? Okay, so I have some of this, which is again just torn off. Now, birds singing, rivers flowing, all those kinds of things are just beautiful sounds, aren't they? However, this one has to be one, doesn't it? Don't you just love that sound when you're ripping fabric? I just can't get enough of that. I absolutely love it. This one was an old shirt, which I did love, but eventually I think it had marks all over it and, well, at least some down the front. So that one I love and I use often. So we could put that one down. That one has this bit here as well, doesn't it? So I guess that could be this strip here, actually. If you don't have any favourite pieces, don't worry about it. But if you do, then I encourage you to use them. I really, really do. As you can see, I've not ironed any of these pieces particularly. They're so small, they don't really need it, I don't think. But if that's the bit that you enjoy, is ironing all your scraps and things first, go for it. So if I was starting completely with all new fabrics, do a couple of really long pieces first, because they're always handy. You never know when you're going to need those, and obviously you can't, you know, go back and do them afterwards. So I'd get a new piece and rip it up into lots of little pieces like this. It might be handy actually in another video if I just show you how I do that, because it does then make this bit so much easier. It's difficult sometimes, isn't it, weighing up, you know, you want to use, don't just use rubbish on what you've got, you want to use the nice bits, but you also want to not cut somewhere that you'll regret later. So I'm almost there. Look. Now, if you're like me, you'll be thinking, oh, but there's only a tiny bit of this one showing through, so really I want to cut off everything that's not showing to make sure that I'm only using the, and yes, I've been years and years and years, I used to do that. But a couple of reasons I don't. One is that it does actually add to the sort of texture of it, so it's nice to have that. Another one is that when later on, like I did just now, I move it up and down a bit, it gives me scope to do that. And the other reason that I don't do that is because you spend so long, your focus actually goes on what you're saving and not what you're using. And I have definitely been guilty of that before, and that just means that you end up hoarding everything and using nothing. Absolutely nothing. So that's not the way to do it. I'm telling you now, not the way to do it. You don't want to, you know, leave this planet with all of your treasures and things still in a box unused, do you? You want to make them into things. You want to use them and play with them. That's the whole idea, isn't it? Doesn't really matter too much if the pin goes all the way through at this point, but I would say it's easy if it doesn't, because then it's much less likely that you're going to go all the way through when you're actually stitching. So I'm going to stitch these bits down a minute. What did I do with my needle? There it is. So all I need to do is stitch down the edges, isn't it? But you can see why we didn't stitch it before. There's no point in stitching all the bottom bits, was there, before we put these on. So I'm literally going to go through all of these layers here. I'll start with my needle, start by putting my end up there, and I have a big fat knot on there because this is quite fine. So I don't want the knot to go through, so it's a bit of a big ugly knot, which is fine because we're not going to see that one, are we? So how do we want to stitch? Well, personally I would say at first just tack down, alright? Not everything, so this one, okay, so I don't need to go right to the edge on this one, do I? Or this one, but I'm going to do just a couple around that bit underneath. See what I mean? To catch it on there. And then I will actually go really small stitches along here to catch this one in. Alright, so again, just it is actually a back stitch, but the back piece is just a really tiny bit. Can you see? Really tiny stitch there. And I'm only going through, it doesn't matter whether I go through the top 3 layers or just the top couple. Pop it in there like that. I'm literally going to go all round, haphazard little stitches, but everything needs to be held in place. I'm actually going to continue on this bit now, because as you can see I have put some little bits of decorative stitch in here and along here and along here, so literally have it, you know, all pinned down or all sewn down first of all, and then just add these little bits literally as and when you feel like them. This is the bit that is easier as far as I'm concerned. You know, when people say, oh, just, you know, go with the flow, don't have a plan, this is the bit that I would say don't have a particular plan. If you fancy a flower, do a little lazy daisy. If you fancy some crosses, do them on there. You know, you pick and choose what you want. So going back to the simple steps that Stella used, you know, the first one is to start at the end, so decide what you're going to make. The second one would be to make the base. Well, actually, the second one, I guess, is to limit your size. So a wall hanging, something like that, you know, brilliant. But get your base fabric first for that. All right, so if you want to do a big wall hanging, just have an idea about how you're going to actually attach that. You know, it might be that you just put it on a stick or something at the top or whatever, but decide on that bit first. As I said, my easiest thing for me to do would be to have this, you know, this napkin, this doily, this hanky, whatever you call it. Have that first. But again, you could have chosen, you know, a really big one, couldn't you? You could have chosen a hanky that was twice this big, so you could still be working on something like that. So the first thing is what you're going to do with it, whether it's a needle case, hanging, whatever. The second bit is your size, where you're going to use it. I mean, you could make a beautiful hanging, couldn't you, and have nowhere to put it. Well, you know, don't put it in your drawer. Have a space on your wall for it already. Do it to fit. Why not? And then, you know, do your edging. That would be my third thing, really. So do your edging, then fill in. And my fourth thing would be, can you see how I've really limited? So I've taken just one jar, all right? I have a pile of goodies here that are from that one jar, and some were out of this one, weren't they? But because I store things in colours, I've limited it to that, haven't I? This suitcase here, full of lots of lovely different pieces, but again, the colours are very, very limited, aren't they? I mean, this is actually really quite bright compared to everything else, but, oh, what's in there? Oh, bits of sequins and things. Okay, so if I were going to put that on, again, they would be, you know, the only bits, and they're, again, still this kind of colour, aren't they? There's nothing all that different about it. So limit your colour choices. That would be a really, really, really big thing. Even if it's just that you're going to do all pastels or all brights, get things that go together. Don't have your whole pile of scraps. Just get a whole bunch of things that go together and then stick to that. And try not to deviate from that at all. So that would be the 4 things, really. And then the 5th thing would be one that I struggle with. Try not to get too distracted. So, you know, when I go out to get this, that's fine, but I've got other jars there of loads of other colours. For my buttons here, look. I have lots of these that go perfectly. All of these would go on there, wouldn't they? And then I have that one, and that's fine, because that would also look really nice on there. But I'm already limited myself to this jar, all right? So it's not, you know, a million different colours that are going to go on there. Everything on here will match, won't it? There's nothing on there that's going to be really sort of garish. A lot of times people, or, you know, in projects and things, they'll say, you know, add a pop of colour, and that jars with me a lot of the time. That is colour, obviously, but it's still kind of, you know, it's really aged, isn't it? And it still has some of the colours. Look, that sort of mushroomy colour is already used in a couple of places. Not only that, the mushroom isn't just one colour. Can you see? There are several shades of that mushroom in there. All right, so do limit yourself. It's so much easier if you limit yourself. I've had several times when I've just, you know, gone off on a bit of a tangent, thought, oh, I know, so in this one, look, okay, I've got a bit of a red, which is, you know, fine, but that's as much colour as I have in there, and if that one there was on there, that'd be absolutely fine, wouldn't be a problem, but no, you know, limit yourself just to a few colours. Guarantee it'll work out better that way. So, where was I? Oh yes, buttons and things. So, I have all these, but what I picked out earlier, again in the same colourway, I had these. And I thought they'd look gorgeous on there. How beautiful are they? Aren't they? Aren't they just gorgeous? I absolutely love these, all of them. That one's glass by the look and feel of it. That one, oh, that was glass as well. And this one, okay, it's also glass. That's partly why I love them. I mean, hear them. They just, oh, they're just lovely, aren't they? Buttons. I always say they're like sweeties for grown-ups. Definitely my kind of sweeties. And these look some, what's it say, 19th century and mirror-backed. I think those two there. And I think they're mirror-backed, those two there. Look, can you see kind of inside them? Don't know how well. Can you see it glinting underneath that one and also that one there as well? It's absolutely beautiful, aren't they? So they were £3, which, you know, somebody else might say, oh, it's a very small amount of buttons for £3. I think that's absolutely, that's exactly the sort of thing that when I'm going out I hope to find. So they're not identical. Those two are, those aren't. They can go on the same project, they can go on lots of other projects, but the fact that they're old and they're just so detailed. I mean, look. Honestly, how could you not love those? They're just lovely, just lovely. And the back, they don't have any shank on, which actually makes them a little bit easier to use. The shank ones are fine, aren't they? But, you know, they're better off for, you know, if you're making closures and things like that with them. So, I am going to use those, I think, because I just love them. Love them, love them, love them. So, let's see. This just makes a difference to where we're going to put our, you know, any more stitching we do, isn't it? So, I think what I might do actually is keep that bit of card, take those bits out, put those in our pile that we're going to use for stuffing, which obviously is completely different to our pile that we're using for bird's nest. So these little bits go in a pile to be used as stuffing, these little bits go into a pile to be used as interesting bits and pieces. Yeah, I'll just pop that probably inside of this so that I remember that they're, because I won't look at them and think, oh yes, they're obviously 19th century. No, not at all. And the fact that's written on, you know, it makes me remember exactly when I got it and where I got it. I know it was last year. I know it's fair. It was that. All these funny little things. So, do I want 3 there? There like that, or 3 on the bottom there and 1 there. I know gardening and, you know, especially things are in odd numbers, aren't they? But I don't think that's a problem. I really don't think that's a problem to have 4 on there. Or should I put another flower there and just have 3 on there? I'm going to put them like that, I think, because that's what I first thought of. So let's pop those on. Anybody know where I last saw a needle? Needle. Nope, gonna have to start another one. Okay. Now, when these are special buttons, what I tend to do is sew them on individually, because I would hate to lose one, but I'd really be disappointed if I lost more than one. So that's actually what I'm going to do on here, I think, which means you don't need to watch me. It'd be far too boring to watch. And I said it earlier, but you know, do keep turning your work over to make sure that you're not stitching all the way through. If you do find that you've stitched something all the way through, then, you know, if you've only just put it on, then certainly take it off. But if it's going to be a pain to do that, just cover it inside afterwards, all right? Ideally, you won't have it peppered, you know, stitches peppered all over the inside. But we'll look at the inside in a minute. Not going around to the other side. And I'm going to, if I'm sewing on 3 buttons, then I tend to just always do the middle one first to keep it easier, to keep it even that way, isn't it? So all on the front, folds quite nicely. I like that it's as decorative almost on the back as the front. I'm not going to put any buttons on there purely because, you know, you don't want to scratch the table or whatever, do you? My table I don't mind, but I don't want to be at somebody else's house and do it, do I? So these are just some ordinary crosses and things that I've made. If at this stage, oh, is that my needle? No, it's not. If at this stage I had come through here and made, you know, some stitches where I didn't want them, then this is where I would just be covering them up. And I would just get a piece. It has to be a piece that you've used on the front, I would say. That's your only rule to making it look like it's not an accident and just put there because you've done what you've done. Right, so shall I do that one? I think I'll do this one this way. Pull out a few more bits, put them in the bird's nest pot, which by the way is different, completely different to my bird's nest of thread. It's a different pot completely. So put those in there. Okay, so as I said, I was going to try and put this in here as well, wasn't I? So it might even be that I could just put a little sort of belly band or something on there. Or if I had, you know, if I thought it was, I might do that actually, because I'm always putting things like that in, little buttons and things. So I think I'll pop them on there. But, you know, you could just stitch around the actual sides, couldn't you, if you wanted to? Make sure I'm just on this side now. I don't want to ruin the front side, do I, by doing this? And then these are just similar stitches here, obviously. So just some running stitch along, and then some of them I just crossed. Some of them I did, some of them I didn't. So, I think I'm going to leave that one there. I can put in pins and things on here, and it's going to go in nicely. Okay, so I don't need to put in extra pieces of felt and things like that. Things can just go in here as they are, look. I don't even mind taking things out of here particularly because I have lots of bits in it. There they are, look, these sort of ones here. I'm going to pinch them from there a minute because I don't know where my others are, or at least they're not in the room I'm in at the minute. What was I doing? There it is. So this here is lovely to carry. Do I have any here that are together, bunched up? Well, just carry some more buttons really. There's silvery, whereas these are goldish, so I'm not going to use that. That's too silver. That one's too plain. Look at these, it's one of my favourites. Have a couple of them in there, so it's just lovely. What was I looking for? One's just to put in. Okay, so that's quite nice, look. What are these? Loads of these would go on it, wouldn't they? Oh, look at that. How beautiful is that? Just gorgeous, isn't it? Can you see the pattern on that? It's beautiful. Metal, little shank on it. Absolutely beautiful. Stunning. Really, really, really lovely. So, look at that one. Can you see that one? Whoops. Little glass one again. I think if you're going to put something extra on just for decoration, then it's just nice to put a little background piece to it, isn't it? Alright, so there we are. There is my finished one. And I hope you'll agree that actually there was plenty of room and time to fiddle about and, you know, just do what you want, but it really did help just to have the initial shape, size, to finish it off, you know, all of that, have that in place before we even started filling in with all the lovely fun bit of stitching. Alright, so I have a couple of other things like these that are already on different videos, So if you wanted to check those out, then please do. And say slow stitching is just having fun, isn't it? So think about what you can do with it. All right, so that was my case, that's my diary cover, and now a needle case. And the thing is, they're all useful for me. Each of these I will use and use and use. So go forth, have fun, and let me know how you get on. All right, until next time, watch one of these other videos if you need to. Okay, bye.